the economy globally, you can still provide some movement of the people.
Give people freedom by taking away their freedom. Got it. Not everyone's
assurances on long-term safety of COVID-19 vaccination. And for those reasons, we would never want to encourage vaccination, particularly if we uncover long-term effects of the vaccines. The short-term effects of the vaccines are not favorable. Myocarditis, which is in the peer-reviewed literature fatal, blood clots that are fatal, neurologic damage that leaves people permanently disabled. None of these described, fully published and peer-reviewed complications of COVID-19 vaccines are acceptable.
And indeed, Pfizer and Moderna are reportedly launching studies into the long-term effects of their vaccines and perhaps a connection to heart problems. Aside from the vaccines, fact-check President Biden's posts multiple times. Never would have happened before. Before Musk, Twitter banned former President Trump. Now it's possible that Trump's account could be reinstated. Musk has said that Twitter will be forming a content moderation council with widely diverse viewpoints. That means content of the platform could become less left-leaning and more centrist. That's what Musk wants. That's what he says, at least. He's also said that accuracy information will be judged by the people of Twitter via community notes, aka Birdwatch. This could mean that left-leaning groups' posts could be challenged by the Twitter community.
These left-wing groups are absolutely terrified that they're going to have to compete with other ideas in the free marketplace of ideas. They want the American people and people across the world to only hear their point of view. And so if things were to continue on the road that they were, then only left-wing ideas would be broadcast on platforms like Twitter.
And the letter's warning to advertisers is revealed as many advertisers have already left Twitter. Think General Motors and Pfizer. Ad earnings are crucial to Twitter, contributes 90% of the company's revenue. But according to Forbes, if Elon Musk wants to move Twitter off of ad revenue entirely, he would need over 64 million subscribers at $8 a month to make that happen. But if Twitter can keep ad revenue basically where it has been, it would need close to 24 million subscribers. Still a lot. Let's see where it goes. We'll keep you up to date. In fact. They can spend it on whatever they want. Applicants have to make less than $600 a month, live in the city, and be willing to fill out a survey every 3 months. The 2015 survey found that a larger percentage of transgender Californians live in poverty compared to the general population. This is San Francisco's third guaranteed income project so far. It's unclear whether these programs work. Axios reported that a similar program in Finland was viewed as a failure. That's because so many people were still unemployed when it ended. The deadline to apply is December 15th. It starts in January. She said she will continue as a member of the House, serving her district in California. Republicans, of course, flipped the House this week and will secure control once the new Congress takes their seats in January 2023. Pelosi has not endorsed a successor. And today is Starbucks Red Cup Day, traditionally the busiest day of the year for Starbucks. It's when Starbucks gives out free red cups to customers purchasing holiday drinks. But this year, employees of more than 100 Starbucks stores are holding a Red Cup rebellion. Let's take a look.
Red Cup Day turns into Red Cup Rebellion. Workers at more than 100 Starbucks stores nationwide held a strike to protest against Starbucks' refusal to bargain with union workers.
We are now trying to remind them nationwide, 110 stores across the nation, that we mean business and we are here to negotiate and we want a fair contract.
Barista Shepard Searle in a Chicago Starbucks location says the workers want fair wages and better benefits and staffing. Barista Emily Alimo says her wage isn't enough for her to make a living.
I make $16.61 an hour, which is not enough to pay bills. I barely scrape by every month.
The union is demanding that Starbucks increase the barista wage to $24 an hour and $31 an hour for shift supervisors from under $20 an hour today. The workers say they're also unhappy with the staffing situation.
We're also not working at a skeleton crew every day and being expected to just pick up the slack of Starbucks not wanting to properly staff us.
deals completed since November 2020. The review followed weeks of pressure from the politicians and concerns from Washington. The business department now told Nexperia to sell at least 86% of the world's semiconductor plant within a specified period and by following a specified process. Initially, the government concluded after a probe in March there were insufficient reasons to block the deal because it was believed the company produced outdated technology. Nexperia, which is headquartered in the Netherlands, said it did not accept the national security concerns raised and will appeal the order.
Flooding is causing...
We specifically have a Chinese fentanyl problem now that they're fashioning it, especially in ways of delivery to make it appealing to younger youths and even children, i.e. they're doing gummy bears and whatnot. And so what he identified was, we're going to take on China. For me, taking on the fentanyl trade and sealing the border was a massive part of last night's announcement. Related to that, he also, of course, identified the illegal immigration and the crime that sort of goes hand in hand with having an open border and not knowing who's coming in, and talking about things like how we have dozens of identified foreign terrorists have snuck in through the border and we don't know where they are currently. That, to me, is a national security crisis. So he identified these things. He talked heavily about the economy and inflation, which is affecting literally every American. And he talked about ways to achieve results he had during his first presidency. And I think that's what resonated with America last night, and especially for me, when you're talking about it was a different tone. It was very even keel, and he was speaking about how he would solve America's problems. And if you're going to run for president of the United States, you have to not just identify them, but present actual solutions. And he offered a bunch last night.
No, our party backing has received a lot of negativity, but perhaps an incomplete narrative. Of course, Qatar does not want LIV to succeed, as they are adversaries with their equally oil-rich neighbor. But it is still a sensitive subject, as families of victims of 9/11 have thanked PGA players for not defecting to LIV, as they see the Saudis as the villains. They've also sent a letter to President Donald Trump, since 2 of his courses have hosted LIV events. The PGA Tour pulled a tournament from his Trump National Doral course in 2017, and then another tournament in 2020 after the January 6th events. Clearly, this ticked Trump off, which is probably why he decided to go into business with LIV to host some of their tournaments. Trump played at the Pro-Am to kick off the LIV Championship at his Doral Club here in Miami, and stated that the unlimited money is attractive to players, and that LIV has done a fantastic job. Trump also criticized the PGA Tour as he has before, and I'm sure that some of that is personal, but at the same time, he is investing in a new business opportunity. Remember, Trump is a deal maker. Trump, who relied on his son-in-law Jared Kushner to broker Middle East peace deals, also may have the keys to a media rights deal with Lachlan Murdoch's Fox Sports, although that was reported by Golf Week and called inaccurate and incomplete by LIV. But this kind of a deal makes sense to Trump the disruptor and Trump the innovator. Also, Trump loves the game of golf. But the Justice Department has looked into an antitrust probe into the PGA and even USGA. Trump blamed the PGA for being stubborn, saying that something could have been worked out easily rather than PGA and LIV now at war with lawsuits. Part of the problem with LIV is in the viewership. It has no TV distribution partner, so it only streams the final rounds through Facebook and YouTube. The LIV tournament in Thailand, for example, had about 26,000 viewers online for its final round, whereas a PGA final round had about 2.6 million viewers on television. And this is where it gets tricky, because the demographics matter. Golf spectators and players usually watch golf on TV because they are older. They are less likely to watch a tournament online. Many times, the tournament is being shown in the golf clubhouse, so it fosters a certain type of environment. However,
The American people can see just how corrupt this White House has been. because this seems to be beyond politics, but to the core issue of national security of our country, how concerned are you that the media, mainstream media specifically, may politicize this and therefore dilute the message within?
Well, they will try, but I think the American people has been able to see through that for the facts, especially when all this starts coming out. Like in the press conference this morning, they were bringing out text messages and emails and correspondence where Joe Biden's cell phone number was being given to these individuals. So it's going to be hard to deny that this wasn't going on. And you're going to see the White House continue to shift on the narrative, and the mainstream media is obviously just going to try to be and will be beholden to their talking points. But we're going to also go after big tech. We're also going to go after those social media companies, with Elon Musk buying that platform. Hopefully the things that were going on there are going to change. But we're not going to, it's not just going to be a pronged approach where we're pushing our information out. This is going to go out to the American people so they can see for themselves exactly what's been going on.
What about our intel community? You and Jim Jordan have both expressed concern over the politicization of the DOJ. They're going to have a role to play in this too.
I can tell you that myself, Jim Jordan, and others on the Judiciary Committee will not support FISA being reauthorized. And now that we have the gavels, that's going to be an interesting debate to see how that moves forward. You have a secret court who is using politicization of the Department of Justice to go after and surveil American citizens. You saw it in the Trump campaign, and those people haven't been held accountable. And I'm going to be filing a bill when we start back repealing the Patriot Act, because you have the FBI using that. There's no coincidence that Nancy Pelosi calls us domestic terrorists and Republican members of Congress domestic terrorists. It's then giving them the authority under the Patriot Act to surveil individuals under this guise of domestic terrorism. And it's no coincidence they use that term, and they're using the Patriot Act to do that. And that's the type of things that the American people don't want. Secret courts. They don't want people to not be surveilled, to be surveilled in violation of their constitutional rights. And the Patriot Act uses this guise of terrorism that's being abused to go over your Fourth Amendment constitutional protections, a legal search and seizure without a warrant.
Congressman, I want to switch gears to the southern border. You have expressed concern, a great concern over what's happening there, whether it be the fentanyl, the illegal immigration. Now that Republicans do have a majority in the House of Representatives, do you see anything that can be done on that front?
I think that'll be the first issue the Judiciary Committee takes on. I hope that we start impeachment proceedings on Secretary Mayorkas, and we realize that if we pass an immigration reform bill, which we will, to show the American people where we stand on immigration, we realize that that's likely not going to pass the Senate or be signed by Joe Biden. But the purse strings come from the House. And the framers of our Constitution were genius in spreading the power out among the different branches of government. And we can use the appropriation process in the House to accomplish policy objectives, specifically on immigration, by putting riders in that not a single dollar of this fund shall be allowed to use to allow an illegal immigrant to come into our country, that the people that have been ordered to be deported must be deported, that our laws have to be followed or they lose their funding. There are things that we will be able to do by having subpoena power and the power of the purse that will completely change the way that these departments are run.
Enable pretty much complete control over individuals' behaviors, actions, access to their bank accounts.
Malone told us he believes these large forces are incrementally taking away people's freedoms. He says one of the forces is the World Economic Forum. It's an international organization of very powerful people and companies. Members include President Joe Biden, the UK Prime Minister, and even the European Commission President. The WEF says it wants the world to change in a way that prioritizes equity and fighting climate change, but many say it's just trying to impose socialism globally. And moving on, a number of left-leaning organizations are criticizing Elon Musk's vision for Twitter. In a letter, organizations like Black Lives Matter, Global Network Foundation, NARAL Pro-Choice America, and over 24 others laid out bluntly what they don't like about Musk's idea of free speech. Here's a quote from the letter. Musk intends to provide a megaphone to extremists who traffic in disinformation, hate, and harassment under the guise of free speech. We asked a lawyer to help us dissect what this quote means. Here's Jesse Binal with the Binal Law Group.
what freedom of speech should always look like is that everyone is free to voice their own opinions. These left-wing groups, they want to say, well, do you, for instance, do you agree with me on issues like abortion? Or do you agree with me on issues like COVID vaccine mandates? And if you do agree with me on those things, then you should be free to have your opinion broadcast on Twitter. If you think that vaccine mandates are wrong, then you should be silenced. And that's not freedom of speech at all. They're talking about they want freedom of speech for the people that they agree with.
And among other demands, the letter urges advertisers to pull money from Twitter, money badly needed by Twitter. That's if public figures and politicians that were previously banned aren't kept off the platform. Here's looking at you, Donald Trump. We'll come back. He's warning advertisers they'll be lumped in with a platform that's amplifying hate, extremism, health misinformation, and conspiracy theories. Why are these groups raising concerns with advertisers now? Over the years, Twitter has been plagued with fake accounts, bots, and fake news. In fact, the platform hosts Chinese Communist Party propaganda. So where were all the warnings from the left-leaning groups before this? Why are they doing it now?
They're doing it now because Elon Musk is finally trying to make Twitter more of a politically neutral platform. You know, it's hardly a conservative platform by any stretch of the imagination, but he's trying to make it so the decisions that they're making on content moderation are based on objective criteria, not based on political criteria.
The letter admits that Twitter has an outsized influence in shaping both public discourse and industry-wide performance platform government standards. If Twitter does indeed have a big influence in shaping public opinion and industry policies, then naturally a left-leaning Twitter will benefit groups like Gender Equity Policy Institute and the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice, groups that signed the letter to Twitter advertisers.
They want
universities to train in research fields.
It just makes no sense to be training China's next generation of cutting-edge engineers or computer programmers or weapons developers at our own universities.
Cotton explains that even if Chinese workers and students on visas don't intend to engage in espionage, they could be bullied into doing so by the CCP. And this is even more of a concern now that the CCP is operating a secret police station in New York City, a topic that took center stage in Thursday's Senate hearing.
We've had now a number of indictments that you may have seen of the Chinese engaging in uncoordinated quote-unquote law enforcement action right here in the United States, harassing, stalking, surveilling.
We specifically have a Chinese fentanyl problem now that they're fashioning it, especially in ways of delivery to make it appealing to younger youths and even children, i.e. they're doing gummy bears and whatnot. And so what he identified was, we're going to take on China. For me, taking on the fentanyl trade and sealing the border was a massive part of last night's announcement. Related to that, he also, of course, identified the illegal immigration and the crime that sort of goes hand in hand with having an open border and not knowing who's coming in, and talking about things like how we have dozens of identified foreign terrorists have snuck in through the border and we don't know where they are currently. That, to me, is a national security crisis. So he identified these things. He talked heavily about the economy and inflation, which is affecting literally every American. And he talked about ways to achieve results he had during his first presidency. And I think that's what resonated with America last night, and especially for me, when you're talking about it was a different tone. It was very even keel, and he was speaking about how he would solve America's problems. And if you're going to run for president of the United States, you have to not just identify them, but present actual solutions. And he offered a bunch last night.
When officers ran the homeowner's name, it came back with warrants out of Texas. Police found narcotics and guns inside Wendell Henderson's home. As for Ghost, she's at Fayette County Animal Control, and she'll be available for adoption next week.
A judge convicted 3 men for...
I believe it's not just big investors in Canada. We have the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund lost hundreds of billions of dollars. What they were doing investing in FTX, I'm not sure, but that's what they've done. I believe as well the CFTC had some former members of the CFTC were sitting on the board of FTX as well, which is incredible. Is it possible, Congressman, to sit on a board of a company and not know that this level of malfeasance and fraud was happening? Hey, can you explain this to us?
Yeah, I think at face value, it is we're just as incredulous as the average American. Like, how could this level of governance attract this kind of funding? You know, as members of Congress, we're not doing due diligence to make investments into these companies generally. You know, we're trying to regulate the space. And if you go back to since 2018, Darren Soto, a Democrat from Orlando, and I have had a bill, the Token Taxonomy Act, that deals with the root issue here, which is what is a security and what is not. And part of what's happened here is they've existed in this space that's somewhere between the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. No one's really taken ownership over really being the regulator here. So in a way, it's kind of designed to be able to be one of these this way. They were supposed to. We thought, and in the absence of regulatory clarity in America, why is FTX International based in the Bahamas? Because Bahamas passed a set of laws to provide, legal clarity for this space. So FTX International headquartered in the Bahamas. If we had regulatory clarity in the United States, you would like to think that a lot of the liquidity that is offshore would actually be in our markets.